Hello, I'm Grahita Ananta Ratri, student number 045 from Introduction to Film Studies class. On this podcast, I'm going to present my analysis of a movie entitled Dracula Untold. Dracula Untold is a movie directed by Grahita and released in 2014. It tells the story of Dracula, a human blood-sucking creature. However, this movie contains more value than that. This movie is very controversial, especially in Muslim countries, and has a complex of issues in it. But first, we must know how the summary of the plot of this movie tells the story of a kingdom in Transylvania with Vlad, played by Luke Evans, as its king. The kingdom lived in prosperity and peace. At that time, Europe was being controlled by Turkey, so the kingdom lived under the Commonwealth of the Ottoman Sultan of Turkey. The peace began to be disturbed when the Sultan of Turkey asked Vlad to pay tribute to Vlad in the form of 1,000 boys to Turkey to be trained as soldiers. And on the list of requests is the name of Vlad's son, Ingeres, played by Art Parkinson. Vlad didn't want his son to be trained as a soldier in Turkey. However, if he refused, it means that there will be a war with the Turkish Sultanate. Vlad then tries to negotiate with the Sultan of Turkey, played by Dominic Cooper, but the Sultan remains firm in his stance. Finally, Vlad refuses the tribute, making the Sultan of Turkey angry and planning to attack the kingdom. Vlad certainly realized that the power of his kingdom would not be able to match the strength of the Turkish army, so then he looks for ways so that he can protect his family and his kingdom. He asks for help from a creature he once met in a mountain, namely a vicious creature who is afraid of the sun. He went to a creature named Master Vampire, played by Charles Dance, in the cave to ask for a strength to defeat the Turkish army. And then before we jump into the issue of Dracula Untold movie, first we will examine some of the film elements. After knowing the plot of the film, it can be said that the theme of Dracula Untold is sacrifice. Vlad is a character who is described as the main character who makes sacrifice. He sacrificed himself, especially at the end of the movie. He is willing to sacrifice to be Dracula forever. Meanwhile, Vlad's wife, Mirena, also makes sacrifice so that she is killed, so that Vlad has the power of Dracula to save Ingeres. The time setting in this movie is in the 15th century, namely during the leadership of Sultan Mehmed II or Sultan Muhammad Al-Fatih. Then the characters of this movie are Vlad Dracula as the protagonist, Sultan Mehmed II as the antagonist, Dracula as the dynamic character, because this character had become a threat but then helped Vlad as the protagonist. And then Mirena, brother Lucian and Ingeres as the protagonist. Then we're going to look at the issue on this movie. As we know that Dracula in this movie is described as a heroic figure. Meanwhile, the figure of Al-Fatih in this movie is described as an antagonist, so of course it causes a lot of controversy. Fatih, who was nicknamed the Conqueror, was an Ottoman Sultan who defeated control of the East. He was an expert in the military, science, mathematics, and mastered 6 languages at the age of 21. From an Islamic point of view, he is known as a great leader. So, Mehmed's character can be concluded to be inversely proportional to what is shown in the film. The Turkish Sultanate is told as a frightening figure, and Grahita brings the story of Dracula Untold into a story that is contrary to what has been believed in the public's perspective. Meanwhile, the audience from the West has a different perspective too. According to them, from the various scenes and storylines that they tried to build, some considered Dracula Untold like a satanic film. The film Dracula Untold is for those who believe in being a satanic film. for those films to brainwash people into accepting the teachings of the Antichrist. In addition, according to them, the characteristics of most satanic or agnostic movies by changing evil characters into good ones and vice versa as in Dracula Untold. In conclusion, it can be said that this movie has a storyline and plot that is completely different with the perspective and norms that is believed in the society, especially in Muslims. That's why this movie became the controversial one and has a lot of complexities of issues. So that's all my explanation and presentation about the analysis of Dracula Untold, and thank you for listening.